Let's look at what happens when we use methods with arrays. So I'll call this project Array Methods, and that's also what I'm going to call the class Array Methods. And we'll put some documentation in here. And we'll discover what happens when we pass arrays to methods. I'm going to start with an integer array. You can make yours about whatever you would like. And we're going to mess with this array very soon. So I'll declare an integer array of how many jelly beans there are in a bowl. Well, in multiple bowls, because it's an array of bowls full of jelly beans. And I'll just list several numbers, which are several bowls that have jelly beans in them. Again, you can make any integer array you want. Now I'll create a method. I'll call it messWithArray. So public static void, we're not going to return anything. messWithArray. And this method will anticipate an integer array. I put the brackets after the parameter this time. You can either put them with the int or with the arr there that I made for the parameter. Either one's fine. And in this method, I'm going to multiply the elements by 10. So I'll create a for loop. I'll have a counter variable of I, initialize it to 0, and as long as it is less than the length of our parameter arr, will be okay. That will allow us to traverse or go through the entire array. Whatever array is sent here will go into the arr parameter spot. Get a little more documentation taken care of. Remember to put the brackets by the int in the signature of the method down at the bottom of documentation. So I'm going to take arr with index or subscript I, and it's going to equal whatever is there at arr subscript I, and multiply it by 10. So take an element, multiply it by 10, and then put it right back into that spot. I'll create another method that will allow me to display an array of integers. So public static void display array, and it will accept an integer array. This time I'll put the brackets after the int data type, and I'll call this array parameter simply A. Again, as I write the signature in the bottom documentation, I make sure to include those brackets to remind myself that I'm sending not just one integer, but actually an array of integers. So, another loop. I'll make an enhanced loop this time for int num inside the array A. So num will equal every value inside our array A. And of course, that's our parameter array A. That is going to equal the array that was sent to this method. And I'll simply just print out each element one at a time. So we'll use that to see the array that we've already created. Mine is an array of jelly beans in bowls. And we'll take a look before we activate our other method. So I'll simply call the display array method and send it my array of jelly beans in bowls. And it should display all the elements in the array of jelly beans in bowls. It does. Probably should have put some kind of heading on top of that, so I'll add it now so I'm aware that that is what the jelly beans in bowls array looks like before we activate the messWithArray method. All right, that is a little clearer. Now, I'm going to go to the messWithArray method, and I want to display what that parameter array is after we've taken it through the loop and multiplied by 10. So that's the array ARR. So I want to display that just so we can get a look at what's happening inside the messWithArray method. So I'll give myself a little heading again to let me know that we're actually inside the messWithArray method. And we're going to take a look at the array ARR. Well, from here I can just call the display array method we've already written, and I'll send it ARR. Now we're ready to test things out. I'll call the mess-with-array method back in the main method and send it my array of jelly beans in bowls. We're going to analyze what the array looked like before the mess-with-array method and also after the mess-with-array method. So I'll copy some code I've already written and change it to indicate that this will be after the mess-with-array method has been called. All right, let's see what happens. Before the method, the array looks as I typed it before. Then, after the method, notice that jelly beans in bowls, all the values have been multiplied by 10. They used to just be 5, 17, 30, 22, 54, and 3, and now they've been multiplied by 10, which is what happened inside the mess-with-array method. So jelly beans in bowls got changed. Well, here's what really happened. When we pass objects to methods, such as arrays, arrays are objects. Those are passed by reference. So actually, jelly beans in bowls and ARR inside mess-with-array are referring to exactly the same array in memory. So when ARR makes changes to an array, it's also going to affect jelly beans in bowls because they are two arrays pointing the exact same one array in memory. Once again, when we pass objects to methods, and arrays are objects, they are passed by reference. So you're pointing to the same array. That's often what you want to have happen. If that's not what you want to have happen, well, let's look at an alternative with does not mess with array. I'll send it another int array. I'll call it ARR like I did in the other method. And the key step we'll take here is to make a copy of the parameter array. So I'm going to make another array, and we'll make it a copy of the parameter array that takes the array that was sent to this method. So I'll call this int another array, notice the brackets, equals a new integer array, so new int. And the length of this array is going to be the length of our parameter, ARR, so ARR.length. And then I need to make a loop that will copy each element one at a time into my new array. So here's a for loop. I'll use I as my counter again. I is less than. It doesn't matter which one of these arrays I use for length because they are the same length. I'll pick ARR. I could have picked another array. And increment by 1. And so I'll make for each index, I'll have another array equal what's inside ARR. So another array with a subscript or index of I will equal ARR with a subscript or index of I. And that copies the elements from the parameter array into my new array. So now I'll try to just refer to another array the rest of the way. I'm going to multiply the elements by 20 this time. So I copied and pasted a few things as you saw, and I'm going to try to change all these ARRs to another array. You're going to notice that I missed one in line 59 that I'll have to come back and get. Also going to multiply by 20 this time instead of by 10. I changed that string, but forgot to change line 59. We'll have to catch that later. I'm going to make another array of integers. You can too, about whatever you want. Mine this time will be an array of daily push-ups. How many push-ups were done each day for however many days they were done. And I'll just put some numbers inside braces. You can do the same thing. Doesn't matter how many you make. Now we'll test out the does not mess with array method. So I'm going to copy a bunch of code that I used earlier and try to make all the appropriate changes. So all the jelly beans and bowls are now going to be about daily push-ups. I'm going to use a different method that does not mess with array method. Still changing all my jelly beans to push-ups. One more to go. And now I'll take care of the issue in line 59. That should be another array, not ARR. And we'll check it out. So as I get down to the push-ups, before the method, there are my numbers. Inside mess with array, they were all multiplied by 20, but notice that the value of daily push-ups did not change. That's because inside does not mess with array, a new array was created called another array. We made a copy of the old array, ARR, and then all the math was done with the copy of the array. So ARR was never touched in a way that would make it change its values. Another array and ARR are not pointing to the same place in memory. And that's how come none of the values were changed back in the original place of the daily push-ups.